Hello and welcome to this video. Today we're going to talk about the 4 aspects of agility. Every organization is made up of these 4 practices, these 4 aspects. The technical practices, technically how you go about your work, the business processes, what's the business flow within your organization, your leadership approach and style, and the organization's culture. As you can see, there's a dotted line here. Above the line, we're talking about practices, the things you can see that are happening. These are really observable, pretty objective things that you can come into an organization and I could do a quick assessment just by walking around and looking at your documentation and looking at how people are what they're doing. The below the line there are more intangible. Um, the organization's culture needs to be assessed in a different way. It's not really observable in documents and processes as much as it is observable in interactions and the way you work together. Similarly, leadership is how leaders lead the organization. So let's go dive a little bit deeper into each one of these aspects. Oh yeah, I this is the proverbial iceberg, right? And the things below the line, the leadership and culture, are that below the waterline iceberg. If you have a strong leadership, agile leadership culture, and a strong, strong agile leadership approach, and a strong agile organizational culture, you can be weak on the technical practices and business processes and be much better off than if you flip that. If you are weak in leadership and culture, you will eventually fall back to your traditional way of doing things. If you're stronger in leadership and culture, then you will eventually grow the top aspects, the technical practices and business processes. So I place a huge emphasis on leadership and culture. As a matter of fact, my approach to agile transformations over the years has completely transformed from one that most organizations, most agile coaches and consultants work on, which is focusing on those technical and business processes, technical practices and business processes. I focus almost entirely on leadership and culture. So I want to help your organization change from the bottom up from in this drawing. So let's dive into what these pieces mean a little bit deeper. So if you look on the left side here is a more traditional, the manufacturing model that's based in the mass production of the Industrial Revolution. So things like assembly lines, batching, large batches and queuing, trying to optimize for large batches, time and motion studies that they did, and variance analysis, things like Six Sigma. While you may think of Six Sigma as being applied in a lean context, Six Sigma is really there to optimize technical practices and make them more efficient. So I put it on that side. In an agile organization, things like pairing, working together to accomplish a goal. People get freaked out by that term. We'll talk about it later in another module, but pairing just means collaborating as a duo, right? You could just say collaborating in pairs or collaborating in smallish groups. You know, collaborating with a group of 7 or 8 people is really actually quite hard. It is my contention that collaboration largely happens in pairs, and it gets reported out into larger groups. Continuous integration is the idea that we should be, if we are doing that iterative and incremental delivery, as we talk about in another module, then you need to be continuously integrating so that you're not saving up your times to bring systems together. If you're developing any kinds of systems, whether they're technical, software, or people systems, you need to be constantly pulling them together and seeing how they actually work together, and not saving that up until, oh, we're going to do an integration cycle at the end of this, which is a traditional sequential waterfall way of doing things, the way I used to do it. Continuous delivery, that goes back to the idea of iterative or incremental, having a preference for short time frames. just like the Agile Manifesto talks about. Doing retrospectives, that's taking a time to pause and think about how you're working together and improving how you're working together. Retrospectives are a technical practice. Loosely coupling systems, right? Whether it's people systems or software systems or technical systems that you're building. Loosely coupling those things with clear contracting between the systems, and that's not a legal contracting where I'm talking about the clear contracting between the interface between those two systems, so that you can easily decouple and recouple things, so that if you make changes within one of those systems, they don't dramatically impact the other system without you being able to clearly see that. Iterative and incremental, we talked about that. Refactoring, that's sometimes we move really fast in an agile organization, and to get something done, we just do it quick to get it done. And refactoring is a discipline, it's a technical practice that says that's fine if we have to, but we're also going to go back and work with those systems again and refine them so that they are more effective and scalable, right? They're more extensible over the future. So we may throw something together really quickly that isn't loosely coupled as much as it should be, and we would go back and refactor that to clean up the extra strings between the elements. So that's refactoring. So those are technical practices. You get the idea here. I'm just trying to give you the high level of what are these practices. So business processes in the more traditional approach, things like requirements planning, requirements documentation, how you go about doing that, planning and estimation, how you do reporting, controlling and conformance, directing. These are business processes. What are the processes we use within our organization to control the systems, to get work done? Right. So in a more agile organization, we would have business processes like emergent design rather than requirements planning and planning estimation pieces. Right. We would work on a pull-based system rather than a pull is a more traditional, push-based system is a more traditional model. Right. Pulling things is a more lean and agile approach. Collective ownership is a business process. We have a policy that everybody owns everything, where in a traditional approach you may have, well, so-and-so always works on, Bill always works on the login page because of whatever software, because that's he owns that page, right? In a more agile organization, we want everybody to be able to work on everything if must needs be, right? So we have this collective ownership approach that says, you know what, I don't own anything. We own it as a team. We succeed or fail as a group. We prioritize the work we're executing in a value sequence, right? So we want to do the most important, most valuable work first and work on the less valuable things later. You'll hear this as a theme. These are all themes that you'll hear in this course over and over again. So value prioritization and the idea of just-in-time systems, right? So that I want to delay decision making until the last reasonable moment. I want to delay delivery until I need something. So yeah, just-in-time is a lean idea, and we use it a lot in agile organizations. So culture, what is culture? Lots of different things. Culture actually is the cumulative experience of the people that are in your organization. So it is what happens in your organization as a group, not an individual person's experience, but the cumulative experience of everyone. It's the accepted beliefs and norms within the organization. So when something happens, you expect a certain result, and that is part of your culture. If I speak up in a meeting, what's going to happen? In one culture, it may be praised, it may be rewarded, it may be that I would be thought highly of for speaking up, saying to the senior vice president, hey, I don't think that's the right way to do this as a junior person. right? In one organization, that may be praised. In another organization, that person may suddenly find themselves sweeping the floors and being asked to find a new job. It's just a different culture, how you go about doing things. So it's the accepted norms, attitudes, and beliefs. It's what I expect to happen when something happens, right? It's my belief of what's going to happen. It's a common understanding of that implied meaning. And I would say in most organizations, at least 80%, if not 90% of organizations, it is unplanned. Culture is unplanned. It is something that just happens. Every organization has a culture. Not every organization has the culture that they intend to have. So we try and create and orchestrate specific kinds of culture within agile organizations. Leadership approach. This is the classic breakdown between the boss versus leader, but this is what it is in an agile organization. We don't have bosses. We have leaders. We don't have managers. We have leaders. So in the traditional model, managers or bosses drive employees. In the 21st century, they coach employees. In the traditional, they depend on authority. In the contemporary 21st century, leader depends on influence, right? I won't read all these to you because you can find it. Just Google boss versus leader and you'll have this list. And you have this list right here. Do a screenshot if you need to see it. This is the idea, though, of the leadership approach, is how leaders go about leading in your organization. In my classes, I'll often do an exercise here at this point to drive home a point about these four aspects, and that's this. I would have everyone in the group get up, and that's 25 people or so. Everybody get up and come to a big open space within the room, and here we would. It's the constellations exercise, or at least that's what I call it. I would tell people, okay, without looking, in your mind, pick out two people in this room. Okay? And what I want you to do now is place yourself equidistant between those two people. So if I'm between person A and person B, I would move to a point where I was between them, where they were equal distance from me. I could be like directly between them evenly, or we could make a big triangle so that I'm looking at these two people and they're equal distance. But without looking or without noting or telling anybody who the two people you've picked are, put yourself equal distance. And then I say go. And everybody starts moving because everybody's picked two different people and nobody knows who those two different people are. So everybody's moving around, and the thing that it never really stops moving because nobody knows what the interconnections are, and nobody can talk about it, and everybody's trying to put themselves in the middle. The point of the exercise being, and then sometimes, like I've done this hundreds of times, and once or twice it will actually slow down, which I love because it'll come to a stop maybe. It's so cool because then what I get to do is I move one person and the whole thing starts moving again, and it doesn't settle down for quite a while, which totally makes the point even stronger that the point of the exercise is this. When you make one change in an organization, you don't understand how many other things are impacted. For example, a technical practice of reporting. Maybe you have a particular type of status report that you're creating, and you see this information on it and you go, what in the world why are we even doing this report? And so you decide, or why are we including this aspect, this element in this report? And so you decide to stop including that. Then later down the line, you hear through the grapevine that some senior manager is upset that they're not getting the data that they're used to getting because you didn't know that somebody else somewhere else in the organization was actually using that data. Or maybe they weren't, but you don't know that, and that's the point. So this is called a complexity, right? Understanding what complexity is within your organization. And you can also layer onto that every organization is what's known as a CAS, Complex Adaptive System, a CAS. And that means that the system is not only complex, but it is constantly adapting to the stimuli within that organization. So the technical practices, business processes, leadership approach, and organizational culture are constantly adapting to whatever's happening, within the organization. And if you are not making an intentional, taking an intentional approach to control and create a particular model of those four things, they will just continue to morph on their own over time. So those are the four aspects of agility. They're really four aspects of any organization, but we like to think of them in the moving towards an agile model. So thanks for your time. We'll see you in another video.